Okay. If you're watching this video, it's because you're trying to work on improving your annotations. I want to start off just by clarifying that annotations are any of the writing or underlining that you do in a piece of writing as you are reading it. Alright, typically when we talk about annotations, I see a few different forms. We have the first one, which you have just a little bit of underlining and a little bit of writing. And I'm going to say that's not very helpful for you. And then we have the second one, where you get a little bit of underlining or a little bit of highlighting, followed by a little bit more writing in the margins. And then finally, like close to what we're aiming for, is you see writing on both sides of the margins. And in that writing, you're seeing it's connected to specific things that were underlined. What I want to do in today's video is talk to you about the reasons that we annotate, which are: it's going to help you understand and remember what you read. It's going to help you to form opinions about what you read. And finally, it's going to save you time when you have to reread. For example, if you have to take a test in which you read and then go back to answer questions. Or if you read an article in class on one day and your teacher asks you to go back and think about it a few days later. What I'm going to do in this video, though, is model how I would like to see your annotations go while you're in class. The first thing that I would say for you to do is when you are asked to annotate is know exactly what you are annotating for. Oftentimes this will be called the purpose for reading. But for example, in the story Wiffle Ball, I asked you to both know the conflict and the narrative arc of that story. But then the directions told you to read and annotate Wiffle Ball, the name of the story, for summary and for inferences. What I would like you to do is, if you ever see the words annotate for summary and inferences, it's saying to summarize your story, but also to whatever the question is that you were asked, you should be taking notes about that as you go along. So knowing that, the first thing I'm going to say is, well, you should talk about Wiffle Ball. Wiffle Ball is the name of the story, which is why you're thinking about it. And the first thing I would do is think about, well, what do I know about Wiffle Ball? And the big thing I need to know is it's like baseball, but less formal. Alright, and I'm just going to write that down for myself again so I don't have to keep thinking about that as I read and reread this article. Okay, and then I got to know, well, who's the author? My favorite teacher, Mr. Darwin. Alright, so now I just go paragraph by paragraph, and honestly, I commonly will just check off a paragraph for myself to make sure that I know what I'm focusing on. So right now, I'm focusing on this first paragraph. We stood 30 feet apart, shirtless, staring at each other. Rocky and Apollo did not know this intensity. And right off the bat, I have we, which means I'm talking about two people or more. And I'm writing that down. Alright, 30 feet apart, I'm just going to underline because it gives me a distance. Shirtless, and then staring at each other. Alright, so I'm looking at this, and what I would make a note, on the left side of the column, I'm going to encourage us to summarize what we read on the left. Summarize, I got two people staring, shirtless, 30 feet apart. Okay, and then on the right is what we're going to call our inferences. But as I think about my inferences, and I think about, well, knowing that I'm trying to figure out the narrative arc, I know that by definition, exposition is before anything happens in a story. And I know I have no actions here, so I'm going to just ask, is this the exposition? Because it's background. Okay. Now I move down to the second paragraph. And the second paragraph's longer, so it's going to take us a little bit more work, but I just go sentence by sentence. I drew the first blood of the game when I hit the wiffle ball over the house and claimed a 1-0 lead, taking my time rounding the bases to give him ample time to appreciate my glory. And even if there are words that I don't know in a sentence, for example, ample, I'm just going to box those off, but I'm just not going to worry about them all that much. But I start off. I drew the first blood of the game when I hit the wiffle ball over the house and claimed a 1-0 lead. Okay, so I know that wiffle ball is like baseball. And what I'm going to get out of this sentence is a 1-0 lead and the I. So the I is the narrator. I'm going to write down narrator winning. But as I keep going, I look, taking my time rounding the bases to give him ample time to appreciate my glory. So I look here, I'm like taking my time, so he's going slow. Rounding the bases to give him ample time to appreciate my glory. Even if I don't know what ample means, I could cross it out and say, taking my time rounding the bases to give him time to appreciate my glory. I don't know that glory is like a good thing about myself. So I'm saying, he's going slower around the bases so that the other player can appreciate his glory. He's bragging. But I'll keep going. The next sentence says, when I put the ball in the same place in my next at-bat, I didn't even bother to run the bases, explaining to him that I would be doing it so often that I didn't want to get tired. All right, so he's hit the ball into the same place, which was over the house. But this time, he doesn't even bother to run the bases. So now he's scored another run, but he doesn't even run. Bragging. Doesn't run bases. Well, now I want to ask myself, why, if he's bragging, why is he not running the bases? And he's like, okay, so he's trying to rub it in this kid's face a little bit. He scored. And then finally, the last sentence, or he explained to him that I would be doing it so often that I didn't want to get tired. Well, I would be doing it so often, I didn't want to get tired. Again, connects to the idea that he is bragging. And then that last sentence. His disgusted look and muttered insults were everything that I wanted. When I see that, I'm like, he wants the other person to be disgusted. Okay. And I have disgusted, insults, I wanted. That tells me all of this. But now I got to take a step back, and I need to make some inferences, which means I need to start to form my own opinion. And again, that means I'm going to circle back and be like, okay, so I'm supposed to be thinking about the conflict and the narrative arc. How does what I just read connect to either the narrative arc or the conflict? And I'm looking at this, and I have like, okay, well, I have somebody bragging. I have two kids playing wiffle ball, and he wants the other person to be disgusted. I'm like, okay, well, first question I'm going to ask myself is, how does the other person feel? But I know that the other person feels disgusted. So I got this kid's bragging. He's bragging about winning. Okay, is the conflict winning the game? Alright, and then finally, is this a rising action? I don't know, things are starting to happen. I might just make a note, rising action. Okay, and then I move down to the next paragraph. I'm going to end the video here, because if you are comfortable with what you're doing and you're clear on what you need to do on both sides, you can move on and you can start to work on your own story to finish the annotations for this story. But I need to be clear. If you move on without watching the second video, you need to have your summary on the left and your inferences on the right, as well as the little notes that I made in the margin as I went. If you're not comfortable about this and you want more explanation, I'll record another video in which I do this paragraph.